Welcome to this week's episode of Humans in 5.
Today, we'd like to take a walk through history to explore the origins of a phenomenon that we're seeing around the world today. We'd like to talk about nationalism.
Now, we're not here to talk about how nationalism is playing out today. Instead, we want to look at where and how the idea of nations came into being.
Nationalism is a movement that really gained traction in the 19th century, but it has its roots in the 1700s with the creation of publics and public spheres. Today, when we talk about public places and public spaces, we tend to take them for granted. We think of them generally as spaces and places that are free and open to everyone. But the idea that everyone is entitled to access common spaces or to share their thoughts with the world is not actually something we've always had in a social and historical sense.
The idea of a public space seems pretty obvious. But once upon a time, opinions and perspectives on political and regional issues were restricted to the upper, ruling, landowning classes. This type of society was considered representational, where the interests of only a few were represented in society.
Over time, spaces were created to allow for an open flow of ideas between the classes. In the late 1700s, as capitalist economics and new trades became more important after the Age of Exploration and the Age of Enlightenment, the up-and-coming middle class needed to discuss their shared concerns. As discussed by sociologist and philosopher Jurgen Habermas in his landmark book, The Structural Transformation of the Public Sphere, this led to the emergence of publics.
People began to create more and more venues to discuss how government and society impacted their lives. These spaces were designed to be inclusive. Now, by today's standards, they weren't that great. Women and other minority groups didn't really get a voice. But people from different classes and backgrounds started to mingle to find answers to their shared concerns and ways to achieve their aspirations.
According to Habermas, a key aspect of public spaces is that they were critical. People didn't just discuss facts, they engaged in serious, critical conversations designed to take many diverse perspectives into account when making decisions.
As these public spaces emerged, sentiments such as nationalism were given a place to flourish. Everyone could share their concerns about their states and regions. Nation-states were further shaped by the formation of new states at the end of the 1700s and the early 1800s. Events like the French and American revolutions showed people that they could take an active role in shaping their own states and start to define themselves outside of their ruling classes.
As the idea of nations were building, people often used different tools to create a sense of unity amongst these newly forming countries. Remember our old segment on imaginary friends who can be connected by ideas even if they've never met? Tools like the mass print media and news helped tie new communities and countries together, helping to bind together nation states.
However, Habermas also argues that, over time, mass media started to break down the public spheres they originally helped support. Remember, the key component of a public sphere was a critical approach. As more and more people relied on mass media and the news for their information, they became passive receivers rather than engaged critical participants.
While the shape of nation states continues to change and flow even today, the one thing we hope you take away is the idea of remaining critical. Our public societies need critical thinking and conversation between people with different voices and opinions to stay afloat.
We hope you stay critical in your public life, and we'll see you next time on Humans in 5.